Hello, my name is Fran Clifton. I'm the head gardener at Sir Harold Hillier Gardens in Hampshire. Today I will show you how we encourage wildlife into the gardens here, in the gardens and the Arboretum. And I will show you a few hints and tricks how you can replicate that at home in your own garden. Encouraging wildlife in your garden is actually quite straightforward. You don't need to buy all the fancy gear or anything that's on the market. You can actually go and recycle some of the material you have in your garden. So try and observe the wildlife in your garden and find out what you've already got. There's probably more than you think there might be. Wildlife is not only nice to look at, but it's actually beneficial to the garden too. So any birds, they will come and peck on the pests which you don't want. So aphids on your roses or other pests which you have in your garden, the wildlife will actually take care of it. The bit of timber which needs to rot down, the woodlice and the millipedes will take care of it. So there is a lot of benefit in actually creating habitats within your own garden. This is what's called a stone hibernaculum. So this is a construction of different bits of stone and rock caged into this lovely gabion wire basket, basically building a home for animals, little creatures which can hide away. So anything you can find in there. It might be a toad, frogs sometimes as well, or if you're really lucky, some newts or great crested newts, as we have found them here in the gardens. The idea is that they can go inside between the cracks. Either they can sunbathe on top if nobody is around and it's all nice and quiet and it's sunny and they really need to warm up. Or if it gets too hot, they can crawl deeper inside. Now, if it gets really hot, like we had this hot summer this year, there is a third layer. There is basically an underground layer of this gabion basket where they can disappear under, so it's cool and shady. So when it was almost 40 degrees outside, those newts and frogs, they really don't like it, but go underneath into the cellar, so to speak, and they're very happy there. Now, if you have a corner in your garden where you would like to build something like that, maybe not as long as this and big as this, but even just a small old, maybe a terracotta pot or an old metal bin or something you have, upside down or maybe just tipped sideways, half buried in the ground will help, and then fill it with old tiles or a cobble, or you find old crocks in here as well, so broken up bits from the potting shed can go in, or literally just road stones, or maybe a slate from an old roof you found it at. Anything can go in. It's quite nice to have a mosaic of different bric-a-brac to build this home. Once you've built your hibernaculum, there's not much else you have to do. Basically, leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't go and just hunt for who's living there. That's not what they want, the little animals. They want to be on their own, left alone in peace, and just be where they're happiest. Maybe make sure that it's not overgrowing with other bits of plants and the sunlight is excluded from your pile of rubble. But apart from that, there's not much else you need to do. Now, this is another one of those habitats which is easily achievable at home. We have collected here a number of timber logs from trees which had to come down, or they might have been storm damaged in the Arboretum. And rather than just burning the wood and getting rid of it, we've made use of it. It's called a log wall. Not only is it a lovely garden feature and it makes a nice boundary to various areas, but it's actually a really good habitat for little bugs and beasties, spiders, millipedes, centipedes, all those kind of things really love it. Now, the key is, rather than having it on concrete or plastic, the timber sits straight on the ground. And you can see that there's loads of gaps here and mosses are developing here, which is lovely, a little bit of lichen as well. And the timber is slowly rotting down, bit by bit. Originally, the wall was about up here, and slowly it has, over the years, just sunk down and down and down. And we're now here, barely 50 or 60 centimetres off the ground. Every bit of timber rots differently as well, so you can see the way the rings are slowly getting exposed here. So here's one which I really like, that you can see how that comes apart. This was one long log, and over time it's just come apart. So you can see how somebody's been having a really good nibble on that. So woodlice are very often part of that decaying process within the wood. So having stacked these logs up rather than burning it means we're not adding any carbon to the environment, to the atmosphere. So they can just naturally rot down, which is great. Another thing to bear in mind, especially if you're maybe in an urban environment and there's loads of gardens around, but they're all very tidy. Now, wildlife does need to have these sort of safe places at times. And that's where wildlife corridors come in. So if every garden would have a pile of logs and they ultimately would link up into this massive, big wildlife habitat, that would be awesome. So things you might find here, not that I'm encouraging you to take the log wall apart and hunt for those animals, but things might make use of this lovely habitat is mice, shrews, maybe even the odd hedgehog might just dig itself in wintertime if the piles are big and deep enough. And then again, it's centipedes, millipedes, woodlice, spiders, ants, any of those creatures really appreciate this habitat. And don't be surprised to find maybe something which you're not expecting necessarily. And of course, in turn, those animals are again food for other animals, not to forget. So when it comes to constructing one of these lovely log piles or log walls, as we call them, quite simple, on the ground. Find a spot in your garden where you're not too bothered that a few logs are lying around. Of course, you can have just a jumble of it, or like we do here, we've got a nice wall with equal length timber, and we stack them on top of each other. So they're literally just loosely placed of equal length and just put on top, trying to make sure that they're quite safe and secure in here. We've put some stakes in at the far end just to hold the whole log pile in one place, otherwise it'll roll down the hill. But you can at home just wedge it between maybe a bit of hedging, or maybe you might have a stone or a patio wall or something where it will just be held in place. That will do just as nicely. Now here I'm showing you a really simple method of getting rid of your brushwood, your prunings, your herbaceous cut downs from your garden in a really simple way. We call this a dead hedge. Basically, it's dead material which is simply stacked into the fashion of a hedge. We've put some supporting posts in every metre or so, secured them, banked them in the ground really firmly that they're holding, and then just pile all the material behind it and sort of occasionally weaving it across, a bit like a wattle fence, to secure the posts. The benefit of this hedge is not that it only helps you to get rid of your waste, your garden waste, without having to burn it or take it to the local tip or whatever, but you're actually building a home for somebody. Now, this could be nesting birds in spring and summertime. This could be a hedgehog which is trying to go somewhere, or it could even be a lovely dormouse. It's just the right elevation for dormouse to hide inside and be there. The big difference between a dead hedge and a compost heap is that you don't move it. You literally just leave it in situ. You don't dig it up, you don't move it, you don't disturb it. And over years, you're just building up more and more and more. And you'll find that throughout the seasons, by the end of a year, the whole material will have settled to probably about half the height, at which point we might have more clippings, or you have more garden waste, which you simply put back on top. Now here we've got a slightly older dead hedge. You can see that it's gone really brown. The needles have fallen off, the leaves have gone, and it's just nicely settling in through its space. Underneath you find gaps where hedgehogs and other creepy and other animals can crawl in. We've had some birds nesting in some of these hedges as well during the summertime, which was very exciting. And slowly but surely, we have the native bramble taking over here. So next year we'll have a lovely billowing hedge with not just the flowers for the pollinators, but also the fruit for the animals to feed on again. Now this is a stag beetle castle, as we call it here in the gardens. A local scouts group helped me to put these logs in the ground. Really exciting stuff. And if you don't have a dead wood at home, you can replicate the same kind of, or you can mimic a home for stag beetles, just as we've done here. These logs, which are about 50 centimetres tall, there is a good 50 centimetres in the ground. Stag beetles, the female, come, lay their egg into the timber, and then the larvae will eat its way through and feed on the timber. But that's all happening underground. So I'm not going to dig this out purely to show you a stag beetle, because we don't want to disturb them. Over years, these will rot down, but that's exactly what we need. Stag beetles, they're not quick in their development at that point. It can take anything from between 4 to 7 years for them to develop to become an adult. So it's quite a slow process. Important is to keep in mind it mustn't be, or it shouldn't be, coniferous wood which you're using. They don't really like that. So digging them in the ground, the scouts, they dug a big pit out and placed all their lovely logs in here. We've got some eucalypt here. There's a bit of oak. This is a bit of old field maple. And this one is a chunk of oak. So any of those, they're all close together. So they're hugging each other. So they're building corridors where they can gnaw their way through the wood. And ultimately, the wood will just decay and decompose and go back into normal ground. So that's quite easily done. You just need to stick a long piece of wood into the ground, maybe 2 or 3 if you have got the space and the timber, and just let it go. Important is to know that the timber mustn't be treated either. So not some timber which you buy from the timber merchant or an old fence post which might have been treated. So just normal wood. Now this stag beetle castle is slightly older, and you can see that it's really starting to break down the timber and decay. But it's doing well, because part of the decay process in woodland or any organic matter is that other organisms come in on it too. So it's not just animals which make use of this, but there's also the fungi, the lichen, the mosses, they all live on it. So we've got a lovely group of fungi just here at the front, for instance. They're just colonizing at the base of this trunk here. So it's really important to give all of these parts of the decay process room to develop and to grow. Not all fungi are bad either, because fungi, they live on something, and then once there's nothing to live on anymore, they'll just stop to grow, really. So if you have got an old tree in your garden, or you might have to fell a tree for whatever reason, if you have got the chance to leave the stump in, that's exactly the kind of habitat a stag beetle likes. Just leave it in the ground. Like this one here, it's a big old tree trunk, and we've just left the stump behind. Slowly and bit by bit over the last decade or 2, it's breaking down, it's starting to decay as well. But that's exactly what we want. That's where it's starting to become a really important habitat for different species. But also you can see here, there's some lovely lichen colonizing. All the mosses at the top here are just fantastic, the way they're really making a network. But the lichen is particularly nice here. The difference to a log wall, which is just laid flat on top, so that's lying flat, for the stag beetles, they've got to be upright and sunk in the ground. That's quite a different thing. So standing dead wood, which is partially submerged in the ground, it's the thing we want. A lot of parks and gardens, and hopefully a lot of homeowners too, are trying to be a little less tidy and leave some of those habitats behind for other creatures to take the benefit of it. Now, we're quite lucky here at the Arboretum that we've got some space to play with and do lots of things. I mean, this is a big Douglas fir which has fallen over earlier in one of the storms in the year. But we've decided to leave it lying here and just letting nature take care of it. However, if you do fancy doing some of the bits we've just shown you in the video, that would be great. Even if it's just one of those features, be it for the stag beetles or be it for the lizards, it doesn't matter. Just one little bit, any wildlife will come and inhabit it and be more than grateful for your help. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed it. Tag us in pictures of your own garden habitats on social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe.